Okay, this is part 2 out of 5 parts. I know on the first one I might have said 4, but I did expand, so we're going to be going with 5 parts. Quick recap, we classified bones based on location. Then we did it based on shape, and then we talked about the histology. With the histology, we said there was compact and spongy. And so what we did is then we took this histology and went back to shape, and we said, okay, long bones is going to have this histology setup. Now what we have is the short, irregular, and flat bones that have the same histology, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at, and then take a greater look at this compact bone. All right, so that's our plan for this one. So short, flat, and irregular bones, what we have is these, we have a sandwich basically, compact bone on the outside and spongy bone on the inside. And since that spongy bone is on the inside, it has endosteum on the inside. That type of layout, when that spongy bone is in between those thin plates of compact bone, it's referred to as diploid. And then the bone marrow is going to kind of weave its way through the trabeculae. I'm going to kind of, just as a refresher, kind of go over what that honeycomb trabeculae pattern is in spongy bone. And we're going to see an image of that on this next slide. So all of these structures, that is referred to as the trabeculae. Okay, it's this honeycomb pattern of trabeculae. So here is this diploid, and then here and here we have our compact bone. Right, so now you just have to make sure that you understand the histology of a long bone, and then this says of a flat bone because that's its that's the example, but this also holds true for short and irregular as well. Okay. All right. Location of hemopoietic or hematopoietic tissue. We're talking about the red marrow. So these are going to give rise to all of the blood cells, the formed elements, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. And there's going to be a difference if we're talking about infants versus adults. So in infants, all areas of spongy bone, and in that medullary cavity that we see in long bones. And in adults, it's going to be found in the diploid of just the flat bones and in the proximal epiphyses of the femur and the humerus. Keep in mind, another way to say head of femur and humerus is to talk about the proximal epiphyses. So please don't forget that. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to take a closer look at this compact bone. Not all of this stuff is going to be on the list. So we're going to be taking a look at an osteon. And an osteon is this structural unit of a compact bone. If we keep repeating an osteon, then we're going to have this compact bone. So the next slide is an image, and I'm going to kind of be going over everything and also adding some stuff. So this one circle right here, I'm trying not to write on this right now because I'm probably going to be writing on it quite a bit in a little bit. This one circle right there, that is an osteon. All right, in the center, we have this canal, and that canal is called the central canal or the Haversian canal. And you see that we're going to have a whole bunch of osteons in this compact bone, and each one has this central canal that a blood vessel runs through. So it kind of makes sense that we're going to have canals that are perpendicular that will join multiple Haversian canals. That's called a perforating canal or a Volkmann's canal. Okay, so now if we take a look at this osteon, we see that it's made up of these rings here, these rings of bone. Each ring of bone is called a lamella. And inside a lacuna, which is the space, right, just like what we saw with cartilage, inside the space here, an osteocyte is going to occupy that. Now also keep in mind, here is our haversian canal. So there's going to be this blood vessel. These cells are going to need nutrients. So how are they going to get these nutrients? There are going to be these little canals, these little grooves in the lamellae. And these osteocytes will have these processes, just these cellular extensions, that allow them to take nutrients from this blood that is passing this way. Those little canals are called a caniculi. Caniculus is singular, caniculi is plural. Okay? And here's our periosteum with our Sharpie's fibers attaching it. All right, let me just quickly check. All right, so now, remember we were talking about that we're going to need growth in bone for length, and we're going to see that there's going to be this epiphyseal line, but we also need to allow for increase in the circumference. And that's going to happen out here. And it's not like we can have another osteon just suddenly make a whole osteon. So what we're going to see here, this inner osteogenic layer of this periosteum that we already identified, it's going to lay down a ring of bone, but it's going to go around the entire circumference. So it's called circumferential lamellae. So it is this ring of bone that's not part of an osteon that goes the entire circumference. Okay. Now, if you think about it, let's just say hypothetically, I hope this works okay. If I have this box here and I'm trying to fill it with circles, you see that there's going to be some spaces in here. Right? I'm not going to be able to fill up that entire box, this entire area with just those circles. So there's going to be these spots that aren't part of an osteon. They're going to be filled up with a lamellae that is called the interstitial lamellae. So the interstitial lamellae would just be like right in here, in between two osteons. There's just going to be a little bit of filler, and in here there's going to be some filler. So it's just those parts of the lamellae that are not part of an osteon, and they're not the circumferential lamellae. Okay, so that covers the structure, the microscopic structure of compact bone, identifying all of those parts. And that's the end for part